Hello and welcome to the Smart Tactics to Secure Joint Ventures with Top Names audio session. In this presentation, I'll be showing you the little-known secrets to crafting joint ventures with experts and top names in your field. Now, securing joint ventures is something that seems to be reserved only for the experts or those who have a big mailing list. This is the case because a lot of beginners and amateur marketers are often getting rejections from top names every time they try to approach internet gurus and experts in their field. They always either get no replies at all or they get a disheartened no to their joint venture proposal. I'm going to turn all this around for you, and you might be surprised to know that it is not as difficult as you think it is. As long as you're not swayed away by complicated marketing tactics, you'll find out that when you break everything down to the core, securing joint ventures is just as fundamental as building a relationship with somebody else. So we're going to cover all the basics in this presentation and crash course to creating joint ventures successfully with top names, even though you might be unknown at the moment. There is more to doing joint ventures than just sending an email to someone else and asking them to promote your product and get done with it. So I'm going to kickstart this crash course by explaining the 4 key things you must understand about approaching top names for joint ventures. The first thing I want you to understand is that most of the time, the experts are usually very busy people, in spite of how successful they claim to be. You can expect that they are very busy people since they are quite highly recognized. They are probably getting a lot of emails and invitations to do a lot of things like speaking, do joint ventures with others, being part of promotions, and let's take into account that these experts are also human beings, so they need to take a break sometimes and have vacations every now and then. So the first thing I want you to understand is that these people are very busy people. Every time you send an email before this, I can imagine that sometimes these experts often tell you that they are very busy and they cannot help you or comply with your joint venture proposal. And don't get too despaired when you find this out. There is still a way around this though, which I will be explaining in a while. How you can make these experts agree to your joint venture without using busy as an excuse not to work with you. We're going to get around that in a while. The second thing I want you to understand is these experts, as explained, they are very successful people, and I can imagine that if I were to be in their shoes, I'll be getting a lot of joint venture proposals from so many people that I've not heard of before, and I wouldn't have the time to keep up with every one of them. As a result, I would grow immune to getting joint venture proposals because I've been getting them all the time. So if you start sending joint venture proposals, you're going to look just like one of the many people that are sending emails asking to do a joint venture with them. You can expect that their mailing and promotional schedules are going to be very full for weeks to even months. So I want you to understand that this is something that you have to be ready to expect in doing joint ventures with people. The third thing I want you to know is that these successful experts totally understand the importance of a long-term business relationship. That being said, they are not into doing joint ventures with people who just want them to promote their products and then get done with it. So I want you to avoid being categorized as that kind of person. Last but not least, I want you to understand that different personalities will attract different types of people. This is something that is not being talked about in most topics about joint ventures, and yet it is something that is very important. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you have the advantage over other people who are sending in joint venture emails or proposals to the same experts that you plan to approach. As a matter of fact, doing joint ventures is a very powerful vehicle that you can mobilize your business to greater heights. A lot of people have achieved million-dollar days, and they usually owe it to doing joint ventures rather than working on their own. You cannot work on your own because if you do it on your own, your efforts are very finite, and so will your results. But if you leverage on a focus group of joint venture partners, you can possibly achieve a massive breakthrough in your monthly income and therefore achieve greater heights, and it brings you closer to your first million. So what has this got to do with different personalities attracting different types of people? There are different types of business people. There are those who are very aggressive, those who are strict, and those who are very laid back. You must truly understand and think multidimensionally in building business relationships with people, because there are those who strictly want to do business and they are not into talking about personal things or anything outside of business. And then there are those who are very laid back, and they really like to know more about you other than just doing business on a surface level. So regardless of what kind of people you're dealing with, you must be ready to accept the different people that you approach, and they do have different personalities. The more you understand them, the better. I have approached different types of joint venture partners whom I had the privilege of working with. So even though they are successful and they have helped me out to build my business over the years, I discovered that they consist of different personalities. And because of my understanding for their personalities and that I got along with them very well in spite of the differences, we managed to build a long-term business relationship. Now, this is not something that you can do within a cost of a day or even a few days for that matter. We're talking about a real long-term business. Not just making money within a short period of time and leave it like that. Successful people understand that this is a very short-term solution to success, so I want to change your mindset and paradigm shift on this. Now that I've explained the key concepts you must understand when approaching top names, I'm going to talk to you about how to increase your chance of getting a yes to your joint venture offer. I want to first make a disclaimer that you can never possibly achieve a 100% response rate at all times. While it is possible to still achieve a 100% rate, you have to be practical in accepting the fact that there are times where you cannot just get a yes to a joint venture partner or even from the closet of the partner whom you have worked with in the past. Because people's circumstances change every now and then. Sometimes they are busy, sometimes they are away for vacation, and sometimes they have prior bookings on their promotional schedules already. So be practical and accept this as part of your business. Did you know that a lot of people who send JV proposal emails always make this classic mistake of talking about themselves only? I see this all the time when I get JV emails from people whom I've not heard of before. They always tell me about their products, about themselves, and why it is so good. But they often neglect to tell me what's in it for me as a joint venture partner. It goes without saying that you have to have the courtesy of explaining who you are and where you come from and the purpose of your email. You have to still take into consideration what's in it for the person without sounding very selfish in your JV proposals. What I want you to do, though, if you want maximum results, do the exact opposite. Here's what I did and what some of the very successful JV marketers do, even though they may not have a reputation to their name. What they did is this. They offer to promote or reciprocate to the potential JV partner first before asking for a joint venture. So you have to start by proving your worth and why must the person work with you on your next product launch or your next product venture. You can first do it by proving that you are a worthy partner and you are interested in doing business long term rather than keep talking about yourself and why the person should help you out instead. That sounds very selfish, and a lot of business people are going to be turned off by that attitude. So, I would advise you and warn you with this conscience not to do that, and to make the classic mistake of just bragging and talking about yourself, because nobody likes a bragger. If you're wondering how you can start proving yourself first as a worthy joint venture partner, and that you're interested in doing a business with a person long term, you should begin with building your credibility first, or proving yourself that you can help the JV partner with his business. Now, if you own a mailing list, you can start helping your JV partners by promoting for him first, and proving that you are someone who is serious about doing business and that you bring the potential of the JV partner approaching you the next time for future promotionals as well. If you don't have a mailing list, I advise you to start building one right away, because in business, you just can't go without an opt-in mailing list. But if you want to look for other alternatives and do it smartly, you can think of ideas on how to make your joint venture partner's business a little easier for him in his pursuit for making more progress and in getting in more business. Here's what I did last time when I had no mailing list. What I did was that I offered to create products for my joint venture partners first and dispensing good content. So it proved that I was somebody who was serious in doing business with them. The most important and underlying principle is you want to prove your worth first, and that you are someone who is serious in doing business with his potential JV partner and win his favor in a positive manner. It's like the guys trying to look for dates with girls in a party. You have to make a very good first impression, and in business-wise, the same holds true. We have to make a first good impression. Speaking of approaching the joint venture partner, I understand that there are a lot of courses that encourage you to use other methods than email. I think this is contrary advice, because if you want to test the waters, it's best to email them before you jump into drastic methods like chatting with the person in a chat program or using Skype or even making a phone call right away. As someone who has been approached by a lot of people for joint venture partners, I found out that I prefer being approached by email first, so I can decide whether it is something worth pursuing for a joint venture. But I have to admit that I was quite turned off when someone calls me right away in the middle of doing something, especially if someone calls me during an unearthly hour from a different part of the world, or starts a chat with a blatant promotion, and that's more of a turn-off. It's much better to send an email first for consideration and test the waters. Once you start sending an email and you got the green light, you can only start progressing to chat on Skype or even make a phone call, depending on how far the business relationship goes. Now, if you don't get an answer within the first few days, I recommend that you do a follow-up just to test if the person has actually gotten your email. Just send 1 or 2 emails, but don't overdo it because the person might get annoyed. This is the best way to increase your chances of getting a yes or especially a reply. Maybe the person might have accidentally deleted your email or has not seen it, or perhaps the person was too busy, or you could remind the person. If the person says no by any chance, don't despair. Just move on to the next person. I've said it is not possible to achieve a 100% response rate no matter how well you know everyone, because of the different circumstances and people who have other mailing lists and prior promotions already. As said before, different personalities attract different types of people. So don't despair if someone says no and rejects your joint venture for the first time. Just move on to the next person and increase the chances of getting yeses. Writing a joint venture proposal email. What I want you to do first is to write a customizable template with some blanks that you can change anytime in a few places when you are sending to different partners. But here's a principle. No matter how you write a joint venture email, I'm not going to tell you things like be friendly or be straight to the point. Those are needless to say. A key principle is that you do not reveal the full details of your product or the launch details in full in the first email contact. The purpose of the first email is to ask whether the person is interested and to get a yes or no. If the joint venture partner says, yes, I'm interested in knowing more, you can please send more details. Only then you send in the full details in the second email. Now, on the other hand, if the person says no, as I said before, just move on to the next person and don't forget to say thanks and look forward to the next opportunity to work together. So this is not going to be the last time working with this person, especially if you have created a good impression at least. Just say thanks for at least considering, and I look forward to the next opportunity next time of working together. Let's talk about what's in it for your joint venture partners. Normally, successful joint venture makers, what they do is they give complimentary or preview access of their product to review, and even a sneak preview to the sales letter as well, so that the joint ventures can consider to be part of the promotion. This is very important, and I don't advise you to be stingy thinking that the joint venture partner might run away with your product. From experience, normally these people are very busy and they are not into stealing your product, and especially if they are someone who is very credible and have a clean reputation. So don't be afraid to give your products to these joint venture partners to see. Even if you're not comfortable giving the full version, you can always give the preview access and also mention what's in it for him and her. It could be something with high percentages, a free product, or even maybe there's a joint venture partner contest, so you want to mention what's in it for him or her. Don't forget to mention that you will help him out before and after the launch to reciprocate. Say along the lines, if you help me out with this launch, I'll help you out again in your own launch after this as well. So this is something mutual, and it shows that you're interested in a long-term business rather than a one-off. A very popular question among beginner marketers or who are new to the world of recruiting joint ventures, I'm sure you're asking and wondering where you can get joint venture partners if you do not know anyone or if you're new. This is something I can also relate to because when I came online, I also did not know anyone who was doing business online as well, or in the same niche I was in. So what I did was I followed 4 distinct methods to getting joint venture partners. The first thing I did was I did a search engine research for similar sites on Google that are something like mine or in the same niche. Now by telling you this, I'm not saying that you should harvest email addresses because this is actually bad advice. I can't believe that there are actually joint venture courses that encourage you to do a search engine and go to the whoisdomaintools.com to start harvesting for email addresses. That's a no-no, and it might damage your credibility to make people hate you more. So don't do that. But what I want you to do is, by going to a search engine, is that go to Google or even Yahoo search and search for keywords that have to do with your niche and start the research for whom you might perceive to be your competitor's website. Only search for those sites that you know would be an expert or authority websites and subscribe to their mailing lists. This is where the second method is. Join their mailing list and get the feel of their personality and get a gauge of how good they are as joint venture partners and see what potential you have on working together. This helps you to be more personal, but I want to warn you never to reply to a mailing list you are on right after the person sends you out the promotional email or newsletter issue first. Because I run my own newsletter and mailing list, I normally get annoyed when I send out a promotional email and I have one or two monkeys send back to me telling me that, "Thanks for the email. By the way, I want to do a joint venture with you." That's a no-no again. That is actually a very foolish approach. So do not do the same mistake, and yet there are many people doing this mistake, so it leaves it for the amateurs to do it, and don't do it yourself. Now, when you send an email, make sure that your previous history is clean in the email, and send at a time when the person is most free, and not just after the person sent out a promotional email. The next thing you could do is visit the blogs that are being built by experts. Get the feel of what they're like and introduce yourself through their contact form or email again. Never use the help desk, because if you use the help desk, chances are you're being perceived as someone who is less important and not as someone who should be taken more seriously. Their virtual assistants and help desk might intercept your email before it could actually reach the partner that you want to do work with. Another way of quickly building your list of joint venture partners is that once you start getting a few people, you can always say things like, "Hey, thanks for working with me. By the way, do you know of anyone else whom you would think would be interested in helping out in my next launch as well?" They might give you a couple of names, one or two. Don't ask for too many. Even though one or two names would do, or three at most, you can also provide a strong incentive of making two-tier commissions if the person gives you the address and you approach the person using the person's permission to use his name. That's also how some successful internet marketers do it in growing their list of joint venture partners to work with exponentially. Or you can also use Web 2.0 platforms like Facebook to add people in your niche and build your relationship on a business level with a lot of internet marketers. So this wraps up the presentation on how you can secure smart tactics with top names on doing joint ventures. This concludes the smart tactics to secure joint ventures with top names presentation. Talk to you very soon, and all the best in your joint venture success.